I'm Bill Williams. I'm the Interim Dean of the Music Academy of the West for the 2014 season, and it's really a pleasure to be here this evening to have the chance to talk with Jenna Barghouti, the Music Academy of the West violinist, and Maki Kubota, Music Academy of the West cellist. And the public has an opportunity to hear you in all kinds of performing situations, whether it's orchestra concerts, chamber music performances, solo performances, and master classes. But rarely do they really have the opportunity to hear from you some of your personal stories about what drew you into music, what some of your early formative experiences were, and what continued to drive you forward in music, and perhaps some of the influences that affect you today as far as your artistic development and also where you see yourselves going in the future. So I think probably the best thing would be to begin at the beginning. And Jenna, I'd love to hear from you to learn a bit more about your early experiences and early contact with music and why we find ourselves here today in that path.
I grew up in Palestine. I was there until college, and I just was very lucky that my parents were very interested in a musical education for me and my sister. So they drove me down to the local conservatory. It was very, very small, and I only had 3 options between flute, violin, and piano, and I didn't want to play the flute, but I wanted the piano, but my fingers were too small, so I ended up with the violin. And for the first few years it was a struggle. I never wanted to do it. I wanted to be like the other kids playing outside. I hated practicing, and actually at the age of 10 I wanted to quit. My parents said it wasn't a choice, that I had to keep going, and when I turned 18 is when I got to make that decision. And I'm glad they did that because I'm here today.
So tell me about that. So you're 18 and you have all of these years of study behind you. Were you considering some other options at that point, or at that time had music just become so much a part of you that you realized it?
By the age of 15, it probably became a part of me, and I couldn't see myself doing anything else. Like, I'd considered law, but that idea soon vanished. And yeah, to me, I cannot see myself doing anything else at this point. I could if I had to, but music makes me so happy, and we're lucky to be doing what we also love. So, yeah.
Thanks. And Maki, tell us a bit about your early experiences with music and your own personal journey that's led you to sitting here this evening talking at the Music Academy.
Well, my earliest recollection of an experience with music was when I, as a very young child, found a little video game cartridge. I had a Game Boy that my mother used to use while she was pregnant and bored. And on it was Tetris. So I played this game with this one Russian theme that went on and on for hours and hours. And after I turned the game off, all I did 24/7, or at least while I was awake, was hum this theme wherever I went for days and days and days. And a funny story is my mother never saw me playing the game, but she heard me singing the theme. And she thought that I had somehow absorbed the music while she was playing it. So she was going to all of her friends and telling them, this child I played Tetris so much that he's singing it after I gave birth to him. So I never told her that I played the game, but
so it's kind of like the Mozart for babies.
Well, yeah. She wasn't implying that I was a genius, but she just thought it was. She was like, I didn't know it was possible that the music could permeate, I guess, a wall of skin. If that makes sense.
So what was that point at which you decided you needed to be a musician? At what age was that?
When I was about 14, I entered high school, and at my high school there was a large orchestra program with about 350 students, 5 or 6 orchestras, and as soon as I entered that program, I got swept up into this massive organization that really supported me from all sides, and pretty soon I knew that I needed to be doing music, regardless of instrument, occupation, whatever I was doing. If it was involved somehow with music, then I knew I would be happy.
These are major, major decision points for all of us, and I understand that on a very personal level as well. Following this decision to pursue music and following the completion of high school or secondary school. By the way, where did you grow up, Maki?
LA.
LA,
Yeah.
okay. Where did you end up studying, and who were some of your influential teachers, or who have they been since you've made the shift into conservatory study and university study?
For me, I would have to say it was my college teacher, Mimi Zweig, who took me under her wing when I auditioned. I was still playing Vivaldi concertos and all the very, very basic things. And when I entered college, she actually took me back to even more basic things and basically started over. It was a lot of really, really nitty-gritty work that I didn't necessarily like, and I thought about giving up so many times, and I figured I was so far behind that there's no way I could catch up. But in a few months after we covered the basics, I found myself able to communicate my inner musicality because I was more technically able to do it, and I knew I had a long way, but I was also able to recognize that there's still hope, and I can catch up if I work hard. So yeah, she was by far my most influential teacher, and I just graduated from Indiana University, where I studied with her for 4 years. So
Congratulations.
thank you.
For me, I would have to say that I've received different kinds of inspiration from different teachers at different points in my life. But if I were to select a person that I owe probably the most of my development to, it would be Alan Stepansky, who also teaches here, who I studied with at Peabody for my undergrad. He transformed me from a hopeless cellist to a hopeful musician. I had a very good time there. So,
within the scope of what we're talking about in your most recent educational experiences, I know that the Music Academy occupies a rather large place in all of that. You mentioned immediately Alan Stepansky and his influence on you in various places. How would you describe your experience at the Music Academy in terms of having the opportunity to be more deeply engaged, perhaps, in a very intense 8-week period with some of these teachers who are real luminaries in their field? Do you find it inspiring, intimidating, a little bit of both?
Miss Georgia Flizanis comes to mind because she was here the first 4 weeks, and she also runs the orchestral program at Indiana. So I've had a lot of contact with her, and I'm actually starting my master's with her next month. And coming here and watching her be as motivated and dedicated to making the orchestra sound so much better here as much as she does back at Indiana just gave me so much inspiration right away. The way she works, the way she talks to people, and the way everyone was so affected by her here made me so incredibly happy. And I knew when I came into contact with her here that it was a very different setting because everyone here is extremely good at what they do, and whereas in college there are many levels and some people want to pursue different things, but here everyone had to do orchestra and everyone was so affected by her, and it's always very, very inspirational to see her work here. Miss Winkler is also phenomenal. I've had a few lessons with her and she has helped me through so much. In just 2 weeks I can say that there are so many things that I now get that I didn't get 2 weeks ago, and that is not something that happens during the year. Because of this very, very motivational, inspirational setting, I learned so much from the faculty here. I'm so lucky to be here.
Personally, I feel that any setting with faculty such as the ones here, I find to be inspiring because whenever I can observe them, I'm deeply affected by the way they work, the way they sound. But here in particular, especially compared to some other festivals I have been to, I felt that we have come in very close contact with the faculty on a regular basis. There are one or two lunch patios that we can eat at, and so chances are we're within 20 feet of a faculty member or several of them. when we eat lunch. And just being able to talk to them, to watch their behavior in a casual setting kind of closes the gap of formality between the professors and the students. And I found that to be particularly valuable.
It really gives a lot of insight when you get to see professors, really esteemed musicians and artists and teachers in a much more casual setting than on the concert stage or in the studio. And I agree with you. It's a really wonderful setting for that reason, and many others, of course. Now, moving forward with your careers as musicians, there's a lot of talk these days with the demise and interest of classical music, whatever that term encapsulates. And it seems, in a sense, that popular culture does tend to cast a very large shadow over what we may be pursuing or we are pursuing. At the same time, it seems like a very interesting time where new ideas are juxtaposed against each other. Artists like Joshua Roman or Daniel Hope are really doing very interesting kinds of things, blending the traditions of the old and the rigors of the new with some perhaps even more popular aspects of music and culture. Do you have any thoughts or responses as far as this is concerned, and what you see as the real future of this art form that we're so deeply passionate about?
From personal experience, I teach at the Pre-College String Academy at Indiana, and I have about 10 students, different ages. The youngest are 4. And just from watching these little kids grow up with classical music being taught to them at such a young age gives me a whole new level of hope, because I also wonder sometimes, where are we going to be in 10 years? People's interests are drifting in other directions, and people are trying to go for other types of music, and everyone keeps saying classical music is dying. But I don't think so. I think for the past 100 years, people have been saying that classical music is dying, and it hasn't yet, because it's such phenomenal music. And if we just look at the number of conservatories in this country and how many students are majoring in performance, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, and if every single one of those people has kids and enrolls their kids in music lessons and pursues a classical education for their kids, I think that we're in good shape for at least 80, 100 more years, I would say. And I'm very, very hopeful that this tradition will carry on, because it's not just a certain type of music that people are going to listen to and forget, but it's music that truly changes the way someone acts and feels about the world, and it's very, very different.
I find that maybe the issue with classical music is that its most rewarding aspect is also its Achilles heel. By that I mean there is a thing about music, that classical music, that is inherently esoteric in that it rewards study, but that also means that you need to experience it and study it in order to gain what it has to offer. Therefore, the public, which probably has not been as exposed to classical music as a lot of us have who appreciate it, don't find it a foreign entity. And so I think maybe that's the problem, that the dividing barrier is the reason why we start participating it to begin with.
Do you see a role for as you're talking about this, it seems that you've really spent a lot of time thinking about this over the years. What kind of role do you see yourself playing very directly in either finding a solution to this challenge you're talking about, or perhaps creating another kind of environment in which music can be experienced?
Well, the only conclusion I've come to is more or less what other people have been doing already, which is blending genres and making it more accessible. As in, as you were mentioning, Daniel Hope is doing interesting things, blending minimalism with old music. Just blending the old and new, integrating different types of art, such as dance, drama. I don't remember which orchestra did La Mer Debussy's La Mer with images or videos
Mhm.
right behind them. That's another thing, multimedia, incorporating that. This project fizzled, but I had an artist that's studying at a school nearby where I was, and we were going to collaborate playing music during one of her exhibitions. Just, I think, connecting classical music to things that the public has already warmed up to is probably the easiest, most straightforward way.
Jenna and Maki, I'd really like to thank you for sharing some of your insight and your experiences with us tonight during this concert.
It's our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thanks for having me.